Alright, Marcus Cage again. This is my training tip guide and best practices for my transformational training model. And I love to teach, I love to train, I love to be in a classroom. I believe that life is a classroom, but if I'm speaking specifically on the classroom, the literal classroom that you have students in, then I love to do that as well. I don't only see myself as a teacher, I see myself as a trainer and a transformational specialist. My type of training goes internal and deals with root issues. I believe that a teacher can just provide you with information, but I believe that a trainer, or what I call myself as a transformational specialist, can provide you with the application of the information. It can cause radical change in your life, whether it's a person that's 13, 12, 18, 24, or 30, 34, 40. I believe that God has empowered me and given me that ability. I'm going to give you some basic practical tips. This might be a two-parter. I'm going to see how it flows. I'm not going to try to make it too long and drawn out, but this may be a second part. But I want to give you some training tip guides and best practices. And this is for those who do a lot of facilitate, even if you're doing seminars or workshops, or you're working with adults or young adolescents, whether they're 12, 13, 16 to 24. These principles and these practices that I've applied and seen fruit from and good results from can be applied in any situation that you're facilitating. Maybe you're doing a workshop, maybe you're working with some teens, maybe you're working with some young people, maybe you're getting ready to issue out a workshop to some people that are adults. This can work in any of those settings, and when I feel the examples come, I'll give you the right setting, which I can see this being most effective. In my career, I work with young people and older people, employees, and those who aspire to be entrepreneurs. I work with a whole conglomerate of individuals, but specifically my two main primary targets is young people ages 16 to 24 and the trainers or the teachers that oversee them and teach and train them in the form of any education, whether it's mathematics, reading, and specifically on career preparation. So to start it off, the food for thought is that the success of any relationship, whether it be personal or professional, is determined on the transfer, the acceptance, and understanding of clear-cut expectations that are agreed upon by the parties, whether the people, places, and things involved in a relationship. So if I can encapsulate that thought, I would say that the success of any relationship, whether it be personal or professional, is to understand the expectations that are given. The expectations have to be clear-cut, meaning that we have to come verbally and agree upon them, but we also have to, in our agreement verbally, we have to demonstrate those things by our actions and behaviors. All right, excuse me. And this is a major piece to this, that I believe that the majority of teachers and trainers have been taught to lecture and not how to facilitate. The difference between lecture and facilitation is that lecturing is monologue, which is a one-sided affair from the teacher / trainer to the student, with minimum interaction verbally and physically from the student. And many times in that situation, the student will fall asleep, whether it be physically or mentally. On the contrary, or conversely, facilitating occurs when the teacher or trainer presents a foundational thought or concept, intertwining an interactive exercise in relation to the student's experience, which is key, with the thought or concept, and allowing the student to experience and discuss what occurred and what was learned during the exercise. So that's a whole nother realm. It's a whole nother dimension of thought when you think about training, teaching, and facilitating. That is totally different. It allows the student, whether it be an adult or a young person, to provide feedback on the experience that was witnessed throughout the exercise. So it's a lot of hands-on, it's a lot of group discussions, and we allow, in that expression, we allow everybody to have their own opinion. Not saying that there's no right or wrong answer, because there always is, but we like to bring the experience and the information and feedback from everybody and make one solid thought that we can all build our lives upon. So it takes more energy to facilitate a workshop or seminar than it does the lecture, but the fruit is greater. So the preparation in facilitating is, in my opinion, is greater than it is just for myself to get something and just lecture without any dialogue, without any feedback. However, on the first part, which is the facilitation, the fruit is greater because it allows us to understand how the students think. I've witnessed people teach students and not allow any feedback, which doesn't let us know what they know. Just for student may not want to participate for fear of being wrong, for fear of embarrassment, or for fear of stepping on the teacher's toes. I've seen that happen in many cases. So from the beginning, we have to set expectations for the relationship between the instructor and the class. Now, whether you're doing a small exercise with a group of students or adults, or whether you're in a true training mode where you have professionals in the room, it is very important for us to set the expectations for any relationship because we know what we expect. We know how this relationship that we're building is going to benefit both parties. How is it going to benefit myself as the instructor? How is it going to benefit the people that are instructed? How is it going to benefit the entire organization? One profound thought that was shared with me a while back, and I'm pretty sure it was by ESPN commentator, is that I may not say it verbatim, but he shared that the key to effective relationships is managing expectations. So we have to have some expectations before we even begin training in order to manage those things. So A says, what do the students expect from the instructor? B, what does the instructor expect from the students? C, what do the students expect from one another? D, how will this relationship between an instructor and a class benefit both parties short and long term? Note that this is all determined from the outset of class. So before I even go into a training with, let's say I'm training with my young people, my teenagers, or my people that are in their early 20s, I don't even touch upon anything before I learn about them, because I use an exercise called It's All About You, which gives me a little bit about them and what they aspire to do and the things that they like to do on the weekend. It's just a tool that I use to get to know them, to teach off of, so I can bring topics that are effective, that can connect with them. But before I even touch upon the content, I set expectations in the classroom. When I train with my employees, I do the same thing on a smaller scale. The questions to them that I may pose is, how does this benefit you directly? How does this benefit the organization? How can this information that's getting ready to be provided to you help you? So there's always expectations set, whether we're training with young people or whether we're training with professionals or entrepreneurs, whatever the class or group of people that we're training with, we always have to set expectations, because this training is just not a one-time event for me. It is the deposit on a relationship. It's a relationship building tool. So placing value on the student. I don't know what happened with the one. I don't know if I saw one, but yeah, that was one. Setting expectations was one. Two, placing value on the student. We have to make the students aware that everyone in the class is a teacher. We all learn from each other. This strategy promotes participation from students who may have been rejected in the past. It gives them a voice, which is very important, because some people, whether they are adolescents or whether they are young adults or older adults, people don't like to share because they feel as though their opinion doesn't matter. Maybe in high school or junior high, a teacher continued to tell them that they were wrong, or maybe their peers made fun of the opinions and ideas that they had. We want to release them of that thought immediately and let them know that we learn from each other. Number three, always provide a foundational thought. This is just my particular specific one that I use that I found effective in my mode, in my area that I train in. The foundational thought identifies the topical focus and is the building block for effective training. We refer to this as the thought of the day. I do a lot of thought of the days on Facebook based upon what I've seen effective in my training on a daily basis. I can build those thoughts into a skit, an exercise, a production. Those thoughts get expounded, then they aren't expounded on widely. But in the classroom, I can just limit them to maybe a discussion, or I can do a hands-on exercise, or I can do a true or false. It all depends on where the flow of class is going and what the people are more receptive to. To give you an example, the workplace is my mind. This thought introduces the workplace relationship and ethics and is referred to throughout the day to keep the class focused and in line with classroom expectations and the norm. So how I've used it before is that I tore up a classroom. I put tables and chairs everywhere, put paper on the ground, and it was a shock value for when the students came in the classroom. They didn't know what was going on. And one side of the room was clean and one side of the room was messy. And I relayed that thought to them, like, this is your mind. The workplace is your mind. How clean is your workplace? When they got into interactions or conflict with one another, I would ask them, is your workplace clean? You have to maintain your workplace because your workplace is your mind. Once you understand that, everything that you do, your actions and behaviors result from your mind, which is your workplace. So that's how effective that foundational thought can be. We'll do 4 and 5 and then we'll quit. And then I'll do a part 2 in the next couple of days. All right, so I'm going to slow down a little bit so we can gather the information. Number 4, discussion and lesson review. After each discussion or lesson is introduced and completed, students go over what they took from the discussion and lesson and how what was learned can be applied to their present and future situations. Students are asked to share a minimum of 5 things they learned after each discussion and how they can apply what they learned for short-term and long-term results. Now, depending on your class size, you may not be able to allow people to share the minimum of 5 things. Maybe it's 2 or maybe it's 1. Now what I'm doing is I'm doing what we call the envelope system. I'm asking students to put what was the most important thing that they learned from the discussion or exercise in the envelope and what was the thing that they least understood in the envelope. As an instructor, it allows me to gather all thoughts and see what's most effective, and I can build off what's most effective, and the things that were least understood, I can refine those things to help my students understand more. So the 5th thing and the final thing that we'll touch on for today is movement. Sitting while taking information can be draining, especially when you have an instructor or a teacher that's just releasing information and not allowing the students to get involved. It's in the same example when you continue to eat and you never move. If you eat too much and never move, then the result is sleepiness and lethargy, which doesn't allow you to engage in the entire training session. So students are usually asked to choose an exercise each period. The entire class, including the instructor, which is key, participate in the exercise for 2 to 3 minutes. This practice gets the blood flowing and muscles going, which relieves stress and prepares the students for the next discussion. I always tell students that physically before you exercise, you have to stretch. And now, at times, depending on the class, if they're receptive, I ask them to stand up and each person will guide us in an exercise. Maybe it's a dance or something creative that keeps us all on the same accord. It keeps us laughing and it keeps us engaged in the exercise and preparing us for the next exercise. And sometimes we even relay a word of wisdom throughout the exercise itself. So it keeps us out of the box of traditional classroom learning, and it also allows us to manage the behavior in a way where we can not so much focus on the behavior but focus on teaching and imparting to the people. So we'll continue on with the training tip guides and best practices tomorrow. But if I could do a review, you want to set the expectations first, and then you want to allow the students to share the expectations from the A, B, C, and D standpoint. You also want to do your discussion, lesson, and review after the training session is over with. And you want to, if you feel the students or the people getting tired or getting unengaged, then you have to use the movement principle or exercise, and because sitting while taking information can be very, very, very draining. So I'm gonna go back in this PowerPoint and give you a quick review over what we already discussed. So we talked about the movement, we talked about the lesson review, which is done after the training session. Oh, we touched on providing the foundational thought. Maybe I have a thought that I would like to share, or maybe one of my students may have a thought. We also place value on the student at all times, making sure that they know that what they have is of great value to us. And then, like I said, number one, we set the expectations for the relationship, because this training is not just a hit and miss or a hit it and quit it, or what we call a BC or a booty call. This is a deposit into the bank of our relationship and building with one another. I'm thankful I have a lot of great relationships with my students, because the things that we share meant a lot to both parties involved, and now we have a relationship for the rest of our lives. Not only when they left the program, which is at where I'm at in my training at Job Corps, but we still stay connected because of these type of principles and strategies and methods that helps us manage the behavior, manage the classroom, and helps us impart into our youth. So this is Marcus Cage signing off. Any questions that you may have, you can reach me at divineworks@ymail.com. Like I always say, you can also inbox me at Marcus Cage on Facebook. We'll continue on in the next couple of days. I want you to absorb this information and provide any insights or questions that you may have, and I will talk with you very, very soon.